Get ready to laugh, love, and learn. Sorry, we just had a technical difficulty. So get ready to laugh just like that, love and learn as we sit down with best-selling author Heidi Esther to discuss her debut book for Cryin Out Loud and the hilarious yet profound themes of resilience, authentic connections, emotional intelligence, self-wisdom, living guilt-free, and empowerment. Heidi's infectious humor and wit will have you in stitches as we share her own journey of triumphs and struggles and how they shaped her writing. She also highlights the importance of building authentic connections and cultivating emotional intelligence and self wisdom. This is an opportunity to laugh, love, and learn with one of today's most insightful and entertaining authors. Don't miss out on this ultimate guide to resilience and self wisdom with Heidi Esther. Welcome to the Wellness Driven Life Show, where you're about to go on a wellness driven ride. I'm excited to introduce today's guest to you. If Mr. Rogers and Captain Marvel had a baby, it would be Heidi Esther. She is a cookie baking, emotional intelligence powerhouse, storyteller, and joy coach. She walks alongside women who take care of the world to unravel self defeating emotions and thought loops, cultivating self leadership skills, and rewriting their stories to start with joyfully ever after. How can she do this? She is a veteran mama, relationship building professional, engineer, and accidental poet. While trying to take care of the world, she fell into a dozen years of life's trenches. In the end, she discovered she had to lead herself to something more miraculous than dark chocolate, although I really like dark chocolate. Her joyful purpose, and now she's on a mission to help you create yours. She practices being a grateful human being with her prankster wife, two eye rolling teenagers, and two lucky dogs. When she doesn't have her head in the clouds or a motivational book, she can be found sharing coffee with friends or meditating under her favorite blankie. Please help me welcome Miss Heidi Esther.
Howdy, April. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you for being on the Wellness Driven Life Show to share it yourself. I'm super excited to hear about all of the fun journeying of your life. So, that being said, outside of that incredible biography, do you want to share a little bit about yourself with our audience?
Sure. So I've really been on a journey in my life. I grew up in with a very loving family and always striving to learn all the science and learn all the math and figure out all of the answers to everything with my head. And then I had some real physical challenges as a child, and I ended up my parents' solution was like a strong heart makes a strong body. And so I really engaged like my physicality and then my intelligence. And then in my 20s, I kind of thought I was going, my life's plan was going great. I had graduated with a degree in engineering. I was marrying my college sweetheart, and a few years after that, we had our kids. And then and then it was just there were the situations kept popping up, and I was like, "What? What do I do?" Like, there's no way that, like, even though I'm taking care of my body, even though, like, I'm, focusing on this issue with my head, I can't I can't figure it out. And so I kinda went into, a decade or so, people would say it's probably like a midlife crisis, just a little bit early,
Mm.
and I kinda came out of that with a realization that we are all so connected, and that's why I just love your show, how it's about the kaleidoscope of all of the different aspects of wellness.
Mm. I really like that you use kaleidoscope, and it sounds to me like a Joe Dispenza reference because he totally uses that
Oh.
uh, at his events. He talks about kaleidoscope, so that's really cool that you brought that up. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but that's where my head goes.
Yeah, so I have read his, Becoming Supernatural,
Yeah.
book, and a lot of it just so resonated with me, right? Coming from just a family and being someone who's very head driven to now someone who's very heart centered and like emotional centered. And so I think kaleidoscope is because, right, we're always moving parts, and all of those different pieces
Mm.
of wellness are always moving and shifting, and the light is focusing on them differently, right? And then
Yeah.
we get to see like, oh, this is an area that I need to love myself harder in, and this is an area that I need to step into and through the fear, because there's something really exciting on the other side of that door, right?
Yeah. So you've talked a little bit about the heart head connection, being off balance within the two, and you talked about sort of a midlife crisis, maybe a little early. What was one of the pivotal moments that you decided this isn't right?
Oh, okay, there's so many there's so many of those moments. um So so there was a series of incidents between my son, who was 3, and my husband at the time, and he just kind of kept leaving him in stores and in situations because he couldn't figure out, right? He didn't have that skill set to figure out how to manage him in those moments, and I couldn't talk to him about that. I couldn't figure out how to, engage. There was just this core of fear that if I address something directly, then it would just be that it was like this big scary dragon to address
Mm,
something
mhm.
directly, and I was just so used to addressing things maybe more indirectly and trying to take care of everything behind the scenes so that everything was flowing smoothly. I was mostly like I was the event planner of my life and everyone else's life, and I was never like actually at the event.
Mm.
I was always, like, behind that lens. I was never in the picture.
Oh, that's a really cool way to explain it. And Heidi, I don't think that anyone could relate to you. I mean, and especially when we're talking about, and many people have been able to figure that out, or they're just naturally good at it. But I think many, many people have that in when they're in situations they don't want to address it, or they don't know how to communicate clearly and in a non-judgmental manner where it's really helping to address any issues that are there. That's really hard to
Yeah.
do,
Yeah, that
especially
is
in
yeah,
relationships.
and I think that that was, like so that's kinda was the moment where I was like I finally was able to get that, like, little tiny bit of self-awareness to be like, "Am I okay?
Mm.
Like, am I happy? Like, is this it?" Like, these little, like, sparkles would just kinda, like, come into my brain and be like, "Can we think about this for, like before you have another Diet Coke or before you organize another closet, before you plan another play date, can we just, like, answer this one question? Like, is this happy for you? Is
Mm.
this it? Do you wanna be, like, peeling carrots and trying to food process them and not get it all over the ceiling? Do we wanna do this our whole lives? I don't know. And so, yeah, so I had like all these little like moments, and one particular, like I was just sitting, and I think my daughter, so my kids are 14 months apart. So my son would have been like maybe 2, and my daughter was an infant. And I was feeding her a bottle. She had almost had a meltdown, and, like, I, like, gave my son Cheerios, and I was, like, ripping it open. There's, like, Cheerios all over the floor and mire, and, like, we're facing the fish tanks, and and I can hear, like, because 'cause we'd been there a while, because my daughter is the slowest drinking baby on the planet, and then I could hear, like, the ice cream, like, dripping from the bottom of the cart, and then I was like, "Am I
Yeah.
gonna have to clean this up again? Like, do I have to bring, like Lysol spray, like, and a sponge in my diaper bag, in addition to, like, everything else that's in there that's 20 pounds?" And, um, and then I remember getting that question, like, "Is this it? Is this
Mm,
it?" And then I
mm,
just sat and I stared at those fish, and they were just going around and around like the same castle. And, this is before I knew Ani DeFranco has a song, called that talks about goldfish going around and around. It's kinda angsty, but it was just like, that's what I'm doing, like, I'm
yeah.
just me and this goldfish are like simpatico, except for it forgets, and the plant is the same every time, but I know that every day is the same. And so it
Yeah.
was just kinda like this moment, like, I don't think this is it. I always thought that I'd grow up and I would, like, be exactly like my mom, except for I hated sewing and she loved sewing. And so, that's where that's where I drew the line. I was like, "No. No sewing for me." I'd already had enough pain. My mom's a perfectionistic sewer, and, like, I have so much probably trauma around, like, trying to learn to sew with my mom. But so I was like, "Leave that to grandma, and then, like, I will do other things."
Yeah.
And, yeah, so just like maybe like the shopping cart moment, just staring at that fish and just saying, like, is this it for me? And so just having that, and I call that right now, I call that that was the awakening of what I called my compassionate co-pilot. And
Mm.
I do a lot of talks and fun games and stuff. And I actually give away these little plastic cars. I actually have one on my desk to remind me. This one looks like the Magic Mystery Mobile, except for it's purple, and they do work. So you can pull them back and then they go, which is great. But just to recognize that, like, we are both like experiencing our life in such a fantastic, like, Wizard of Oz fashion. We're in the seat. We get to like experience all the delicious food and all the delicious like nature and all the delicious love and emotions, from all of our relationships. And so that's the driver's seat. But more importantly, we have a co-pilot. And when we're born, our co-pilot's like our folks. And all of our caretakers making sure that we're not driving off the road, and then we're not hitting potholes too much, and yeah, pointing us in the right direction, as opposed to them. And then when we get older, like I just think that I always had my parents in my co-pilot seat. And I know, especially in my teens and 20s, I had like a group of friends. Whenever I had a major life decision, and I know this even includes marrying my husband, um, I would actually call them and be like, right, using my head, right, and not my heart, be like, "All right, is this the right choice? Like, what are the options here?"
Yeah,
And
you probably should know that, right?
I know, but, like, me,
Yeah.
rational brain only engaged, like, I wasn't listening to my gut, I wasn't listening to my heart, I was just listening to I was kinda like a floating big head, and, in so many ways,
Mhm.
and yeah, so, like, I had all these people in my co-pilot seat who would direct me, because I was like, "Oh, well, I'll take my 5 first responses from my friends, and I will take the majority opinion." And I'm like, "Who operates their life like that?" Like, we don't even know if a government operates well like that. Like, I don't think our internal government should run like that at all. Like, advisors, great. Like, directing our traffic of our own life and our feet our own way, no.
Yeah.
So, so yeah, just engaging, like, working on like, how can I engage my compassionate co-pilot? Can I put myself in that seat and take a break? Can we pull over? Can we get a rest stop? Can we, grab a Starbucks or like a peppermint tea and just be like, all right, we're just going to do some belly breaths. And we're just going
Mhm.
to check in and say, like, how was that? Right. And reflect upon, like, where are we going? Are we going in the right way? Are we headed to the sea or the mountains? I thought we said we're going to the mountains, and now clearly we're in the desert. Like, what's going on here? And so, yeah, just engaging that compassionate co-pilot, and the more that we like engage our self-awareness, the more self-awareness we have. So it's kind of like this lovely little this snowball effect. And I didn't know at all, like during this journey of like figuring out that I was in an unsafe marriage, and then my divorce was really
Mhm.
contentious. Um, and then I realized, like, I came into awareness that I was codependent. And so that was like, people pleaser to the extreme.
Mhm.
Like my identity was based off of what other people thought of me. Like in my purse, I kept thank you notes from people. Like that was like if I felt bad
Mm.
about myself, I would read thank you notes. Like I didn't have any other
Yeah.
internal ability to manage that. So through all these different times, I kept going back to like, is this it? Right? Those questions like, is this it? Am I happy now?
Mhm.
Like, what's
Yeah.
going on? All right. That's this little, I got a little life's hiccup or, shitstorm, so to speak. Like,
Yeah.
so like how can we figure it out? How can we be happy now? Like, what do I have to do? And so I just kept coming back and back and back to myself, even though it was counterintuitive for me because I view myself like a helper.
Mm. Yeah, that makes sense. I wanted to bring in one of these quotes that you mentioned during the scheduling. You said, I believe it's time to heed Howard Thurman's wake up call. Don't ask yourself what the world needs. Ask yourself what makes you come alive
Mm.
and go do that, because what the world needs is people who have come alive. And I thought that was a brilliant quote to add to this.
Amen to that. So, I that was like the first quote that really was like, oh, that's like a really deep touching a deep part of me, and I didn't know what it
Yeah.
was, and I didn't know that I would be helping women who take care of the world and helping professionals like unearth themselves, their authentic selves and authentic joy. But I knew it was like that's exactly kind of what I'm trying to do, figure myself out right now. And so I would always come back to Howard's quote. But um it's so I always, I talk to people a lot about, like, how hard is it? We've been so conditioned to do what everyone asks us to do,
Mhm.
because we're there we wanna help, and we want to bring all of ourselves to bear on what is most important in the world right now. And like honestly, there are a million, like there's as many different ways, there's billions of ways to help because there's billions of different people. And so how do we know what to do with all the tools that we're given? And so the way that I have figured out, and I help women and helping professionals like focus in on, as I talk about what is like our true north, like
Mm.
finding our true north. And to me, true north is our joy.
Yeah.
Our bodies are so amazing, and so like we're so evolved that if we listen to how, right, if we engage our compassionate co-pilot to how we react to something, we can say, oh, I want more of this. And obviously,
Oh, I
it's
love
very
that.
easy to say that, like, when you're sitting in front of, like, a bowl of dark chocolate or ice cream, or your favorite show, but, like, something that lights you up, you like, your whole body up, maybe
Mm,
not just, like, your palate and your stomach.
yeah.
Um,
I had
but
a good friend who said something like that. So when you get something wonderful or something that makes you feel like that, where it's like the light in your solar plexus is just like boom, right? Magnified. And you just say, yes, please, I'll take more of that.
yes, yes, like, going into, like,
Yeah.
and continuing to walk towards it, right? And
Mhm.
then, because it's not like, uh, my wife is on a career journey, and she'll always say, like, "I don't know what I wanna do," right? So she's trying to, like, go from step 1 to step, like, 10,000 sometimes, and I'm like, "But like that next step that makes you happy, and then the
Yeah.
next one, and like trying to put together all those little pieces, because we don't know. Sometimes we have to get all the like a long way down the road, and then you're like, oh, there's a giant roadblock here, and I'm not going to go any further, and
Yeah.
but I'm going to use all these tools for something else. Okay. So I was a fundraising. Okay. So I have a degree in engineering, and I tried it, and I'm a people person in general. So desk life wasn't for me. So I ended up finding a headhunter, and I was like, what can you do with this person right here? Like, I didn't know anything about my personality, or like how to describe myself at all. I just like had a resume, and I had like one job out of college, and I ended up in fundraising. I was at like my local Girl Scout council. I was their fundraising person. And so I was helping, raise money so the girls didn't have to like sell a bajillion cookies. And and I was like, "Oh, this is so good. This is so good," right? I started writing, like I wrote thank you notes to people who donated, and I got to talk to people about what was meaningful for them. And so those are the people who were engaging, right, with the mission. And so through this 17-year career, I was at like 4 different local nonprofits, and each of them I was like deepening connections, and I was doing like more and more like heavy relationship building, and then I did a bunch of marketing, and then I started building in like this giant gratitude practice. And so
Mm.
as I s as so that in that so, the second time I was unemployed, it was, like, 3 weeks before the pandemic, and I was like, I had gotten to a point, right? I had gone through all these, like, lessons and everything, and I was like, "I'm unemployed. This is great. I can network how I want to. I can, like, hang out with I can, like, bring my kids to school every day and, like, make them special snacks when they come home, because I hadn't been home since they were little, since I was,
Mhm.
like, this, like, self-sacrificing people pleaser. So I had never felt full. Like, I was developing, like, this really nice, rich self-care practice, and I had realized, like, yes, I do need to meditate under a blankie. Like, that's how I need to meditate. And yeah, sometimes I fall asleep, but then I recognize I give myself grace, and like my body needs the extra sleep. And so, like, I think it was May. It was like in the heart of that first shutdown that we had, and kept getting this call. Like, I'd wake up at like 2, 3, 4 in the morning, and I was like, "I'm raring to go. Let's do today. Today is great." And like, which was weird because like everyone around me was just miserable. They
Yeah.
were just like,
That's
"How?"
fascinating.
And so I was just like, I had figured out like 3 days a week, I was walking with friends. I was talking with someone else on the phone another day. We were doing the 6 foot or 12 foot, I think it was at that time, difference, to be safe. And like, I was making my kids soups, a lot of soups. For some reason, I was like all about the soups.
Mhm.
And and then I got these 2, 3, 4 a.m. wake up calls to just start sharing my story.
Mm.
And so I just got a 5 ring, like, 5 ring notebook, 5 subject notebook, and I just started filling up. I filled up a few of these notebooks that summer, and I just started writing my story, because I had figured out, like, how to get to joy every day, right? How to turn my car towards true north every day, and I didn't have to, and it wasn't something that was super taxing. It was just kind of like I just did a check-in. I was
Yeah.
like, "All right, how are we doing, Heidi? Do we need peanut butter toast, or we want our eggs with spinach? Like, what do we want? Do we wanna maybe, do we wanna go for a walk, or do we wanna do some yoga on the deck with our little Chewini? Like, what are we feeling like today?" And so
Right.
just but it was just this, like, radical shift in, like, because there's all this stuff like develop a self-care routine, and like, this is what you need to do for self-love. This is what you need to do for self-care. But I had gotten to it from an organic sense of saying like
Mm.
maybe the whole joy and life purpose and all of that can really be boiled down through like how we take care of ourselves now.
Yeah, right, in
Wow.
the present moment. So,
Yeah.
you have absolutely gone on this journey of self-discovery, and we're gonna move into our first commercial, but when we come back, I wanna know, what do you think and of how do you define wellness today? So, stay tuned.
KimJacobsConsulting.com. You know, people say opportunity knocks on every door. Right. No. Opportunity stands by silently waiting for you to recognize it. So I want you to recognize that this is a time for you. This is an incredible time to have your own talk show. It establishes a level of credibility.
Yes.
And by being exposed to people on a regular basis, it allows you to strategically begin to impact and attract your audience. She can take you in a place in yourself that you can't go by yourself. So go to KimJacobsConsulting.com. That's KimJacobsConsulting.com. Did I say KimJacobsConsulting.com? Yes, you did. Very good. Make sure you go there and sign up for the coaching, and we're looking forward to working with you. You have something special. You have greatness within you.
So you've gone on a journey of self-discovery, and that has led you to an understanding of what wellness means to you. And it means something different to everyone. What does it mean to you?
That's such a broad question. How much time do we have? No. Um, so so through the process of, going on my journey, I was able to pick up, and we'll probably talk about this later. I was able to pick up the pieces of what I call self-leadership. And
Yeah.
so that's kind of like our ability to figure out where we're at, and be able to like pick ourselves up and not stay stuck, and like get the support we need. But the last piece of self leadership is what, like, kind of like how I would define wellness. I call it, I call the whole process like peeling your onion. And really it's a process of radically accepting, um, all of what we need and all of who we are in any given moment, and being okay with it, and not having like that reaction like we're the judge, right? Just
Mm,
like removing that judge entirely, right? And then putting that compassionate
yeah.
co-pilot in there, saying like one, I think we have like, I think we're all onions. Yes, that's a la Shrek, came from Shrek. And our top two layers are, to me, like what we're really taught to focus on when we're young. The top layer is like our relational layer, like who we are in relation to everyone else. So we're a coworker, we're a
Mm.
mom, we're a volunteer, we're an aunt, we're a sister,
That's
or a
the
brother.
identity aspect.
Yeah, so like this.
What we identify as.
Yes, so we're all taught that, right? First, we
Yeah.
know ourselves first through the eyes of everyone else, and then right below that is like I call it our hard skills layer. So like all of our
Mm,
education and like all the skills that we're learning, like all the hobbies that, our parents put us in and everything in
yeah.
school, and like all of our learning goes into hard skills. And so there's so many other layers. There's a layer that, I work with women on, like, how do you need to heal?
Mhm.
Like when I experience an event that is, I'm a highly sensitive person. So that's like one of the layers is your personality. So I'm a highly sensitive person. So I need time to process. And when there's an event, like if I'm grieving, like I just need more, one, sleep, two, like I usually like really surround myself with like, I don't know, like I feel like I'm just like the soup person today. I'm just, I'm
It's
just
funny because 'cause I'm
laying
about to
out.
make some soup,
Yeah.
Heidi. Just by the way, FYI, I am also a soup person.
Oh,
It's good stuff.
awesome. Awesome. Do you have a favorite soup that you make?
Oh my gosh, it's different every single time. I'm one of those cooks that I just throw stuff together and it always turns out really good, except
Oh,
I'm not a baker. I'm not so
okay.
keen on that. Uh, but yeah, I love just throwing things together and I discovered the power of coconut milk
Oh, yeah, that
in
stuff
soup.
is good.
Oh, it's awesome. It gives it that creamy yumminess. And so definitely
Yeah.
love that. And kale, big ones
Ah.
on that.
Oh man, you're speaking to the choir. I have a cauliflower soup, so it's like a blended thing, so it's not chunky,
Yeah.
and it's infused with like a rosemary infused oil.
Oh,
Oh, and then you like toast
that.
the croutons with the rosemary. So anyway, now I'm getting hungry.
Oh,
But
Heidi,
anyway,
now you have to share a recipe.
I
Well,
will.
the
I will
Wellness
share the
Driven Life Show has turned into some incredible recipes that we will have here.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
Well, that's part of, I mean, food to me is that's one of the biggest joys. And it's one of the things that connects us together, is through joining and being together with food. It's such a connector
Mm,
piece. And it touches us on a soul when we have that warm, feeling and that comfort. It reminds me of, we just went to a restaurant, a pizza place. It's excellent over here. And we saw a gentleman sitting by himself, and he just was sitting there. He had no food. And my husband just felt so moved. He said, April, should I ask him if he'd like some of our pizza? Because, we got a big pizza. And I said, if you're feeling that, then yeah, you should listen to
oh
yourself,
my
that
gosh.
intuition, that talk. And he offered him, and he was so grateful. He's from West Africa. I don't know his story. I'll never know his
Wow.
story, but he was so grateful. But it's just
Oh,
something
I
that
love
connects
that.
us.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and, like, listen to that, and, like, when I get
yeah.
really, really stressed out and, like, when I celebrate, I always come back to this spaghetti. I'm not Italian at all, but it's just, like, it was one of my favorite meals my mom made growing up,
Yeah,
and so it's just, like, right, this connection, like, it just creates that connection, like, between us and between our generations,
yeah,
right? So I'm, like,
yeah,
tapping into other generations, and, yeah, food is so important and so life-giving, and, I just was on vacation recently, and I talked, we were very grateful to go to Hawaii, and I talked to a
mm,
native, and they have this whole, like, challenge there with not being in touch with the land anymore because that's where they got their food, right? And
yeah,
so it's just like, and so we have this deep connection, right? Even if we're flying all over the country and, like, moving in different places, like, we have this connection with food, which is also connection with our land, right? Which is, part of that wholeness.
yeah.
Mm, I love that.
Heidi, I'll point it out on the show just because it comes to mind. But Philip Kuntz, he was a guest on our show at one point, and he's a former Navy SEAL. He's a keynote speaker. Yesterday, we had the pleasure of picking him up at the airport and watching one of his keynotes. And something that he mentioned inside there was, go a day at a time, but sometimes a day at a time is too much. So he said, in the perspective of, if you can imagine Navy SEAL training and how they basically they feed you, but they make sure you're really cold and you're very tired. So they
Oh,
they
wow.
rid you of sleep, and they never keep you warm, right? So you have all of these discomforts, but they do feed you. So he said, if you can't do one day at a time, doing a meal at a time.
Mm.
So I thought that was a really interesting perspective, and I liked it very much.
And I love that. I love that in terms of wellness, just like being able to meet yourself right in that moment,
Mhm.
no matter
Yeah.
what. And like you're like, yes, the future can, because we can catastrophize, like, the future, intellectualize the future, and just get all wrapped up. In the past, we could ruminate, right? And like, who we are, like, and so what I like to do is, like, I have this practice where it's just like I am in a room with like all of my me's, all of my significant me's that kind of come up. So I have my little me who she was like mommy's little helper,
Mm.
and she tried really hard to be better than her three brothers, and so that was like her life's mission, was to just beat her brothers at everything. And so she tried really hard, and nothing was ever good enough for her.
Mm.
And then, I'm in a room with like my future me's, like my more courageous, badass,
Mhm.
polished me,
Yeah, of course.
and wise. And so like I bring them in, and so every day I sit and I'm just like, I do my meditation, and then a lot of times with a blankie over my eyes, because when I was little and I had nightmares, I would always put a blankie over my eyes, and I don't like, and so like that's how I connect and love, right, and take care of my little me every day. And like I do hard things every day to say, like, to tip my hat to like my future me's, but also the most important me is now, right? How
Yeah.
can we honor ourselves now? How can we radically accept all the ways we're showing up? Like, I'm a midlife lady. I got a receding hairline. I had a whole situation with it. And like, like how can we be okay with ourselves now versus just being
Yeah.
like the judge, jury, and jailer, right? Is that what those are? Like, so can we put can we put them aside and just say, like, we're doing the best that we can right now, and
Mm.
we're loving and honoring all the different pieces of us. And I guess, long story short, like the definition of wellness to me is just like radically accepting like all of those layers of us, and being able
Mhm.
to be in that present moment, right? And just like love ourselves as we are right now. Like we're these beautiful messes, like, kaleidoscope of amazing in progress, right?
I love how you said all of that. The kaleidoscope, the onion, the peeling. I definitely love how you bring in the little me's, or what we identify ourselves as, or all of the different faces that we show the world, because there's many of them. Whether people want
Mhm.
to agree or disagree, I think it's a fact. We show up
Yeah.
differently in different situations, and that's a natural human response to do that.
Yeah. 'Cause my relationship with you is gonna be different than my relationship, with my kids,
Yeah,
This
100%.
is yeah.
So it brings me to think about Tony Robbins does something similar, to where he has you go in and deep and talk to the different areas of yourself, the different faces of you, the king or queen within, the joker within, all of those different sides. And then he has them talk to each other, like what would they say to one another.
Mm.
So I really like that you brought that up, because it's another really cool way to think about things and to really know yourself. It just goes deeper and deeper and deeper, just like you said, peeling the onion and
Yeah,
going
yeah.
into those layers.
Yes, like being able to, to open that conversation, and right, putting that, that judgment away, and just saying like, we're here to have a conversation. And that's kind of like in a lot of what I do, like that's just kind of like with my relationship with myself and with others, it's like we're just going to have a conversation. And I can remember um that I it took me so many times to be able to speak to my husband about him leaving our kid,
Mm.
in different stores.
And
And
how hard would that, I mean, I
and
can only imagine the
and yeah, so because
feeling.
I had so much. One, it was just like there were so many different pieces, right? So my head was saying like, I had messed up in some way for this to happen. And then my other part of me was like, well, let's just smooth it over, and make it all good, and make it pretended like it didn't happen. And so yeah, just being able um to talk to him. I remember we had been seeing a pastor for pastoral care to try to figure out like
Mm.
how to talk to each other directly, and nothing really worked. And I think one day he came home and he started yelling, and he was definitely more like anger, not heart on his sleeve, but anger on his sleeve. And I remember that I had had enough, like something had hit, and we were in our bedroom, and I stood up on the bed so that finally, like, I could be taller than he would
Mm.
be. And then I was like, this is, this is not right. I don't know how to make it right. I don't know, what we need to do. I don't know what I feel. And so there was this finally like this pivotal moment, and we have to, because there was like an inner part of me that's like, you are direct and honest person. You need to do this now for you and your kids. You need to stand up now for who you are.
Mm.
And so like that was right. So that was one of the layers that was just kind of like, I was brought up in such an indirect environment. Everything was so
Yeah.
intellectualized and not direct. And I was finally like, that inner layer was like, enough is enough. It's go time. And so so that
Yeah.
was it. I just jumped on the bed, and then finally, like, it was the weirdest thing because I had never been taller than my husband. I mean, he was like, 7 or 8 inches taller than me. And so it finally, like, immediately, his whole energy just completely shifted
Wow.
because
That's
he was
amazing. I think you just knew that you had to do that, and you didn't just do it verbally, vocally, but you did it physically with your entire body. And I think that that was kind of where the switch happened, because you included all of those things to where your body and your mind were connecting together and saying, yes, this is the moment, the pivotal moment, and I'm going to remember this, and that's it. It's not going to be like this from here on forward. Thank
Yeah.
you for sharing that.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah, it was that inner layer that was like, you're going to be direct and honest. It is going to be hard. And I tell you, at this point, I was starting to figure out, like, all right, I don't know how this is going. I'm going to try to find a job in case things go south. And about a year later, I instigated a divorce. About a year later than that, I realized somebody had to tell me that I might be gay. And so then I was like, oh, okay. So
By
that
the
was like,
way.
by the way, so I'm in the middle of this contentious divorce, and I'm like working on my like a midlife awakening. And I
Yeah.
was at a country club, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna, because I had this direct and honest piece, right? Because I was like, oh, I love this feeling of being direct and honest with people. Like, and now I tell like, I work with my friends and I work with women about just like leaning into the discomfort, right? Because a lot of
Mm.
us have that in our standards of integrity and in our values. We have being honest and being authentic, and all of that requires us being direct and honest.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
Well,
leaning into the discomfort.
I'm curious. So you have a piece on here. What did your stepdog teach you about yourself?
Oh my God. Oh, okay. So I have
That's a pretty heavy sigh. I mean, this must have been a pretty big teaching.
it's a big, yeah. I never, so I didn't grow up in a dog family or an animal family. My brothers did surprise me one year. I asked for fish and they got me an iguana. So that was like that was a, that was a plot twist in my teenage years. But so um, when I met the woman who is now my wife, she had a little Italian greyhound. So it's like a miniature little greyhound. And he's like, mostly black and a little bit of white patches around his eyes. So super cute and everything. And um, he would just follow her around everywhere. Like he was always kind of like right behind her leg. Whenever I would get close to her, like either on the couch or like kissing her goodbye or whatever, he would just like jump like I don't know, like a bouncy ball. He like jumped like a bouncy ball, and he would just like bam his whole body into me. And I was like, man, you got issues, buddy. Like, stop trying to harass me. I'm just saying goodbye to your mom. Jeez, man. And so like he was just, I don't know, he was this constant presence, and he was always needy. And and
A jellyfish,
and yeah, he was a jellyfish.
green-eyed monster.
He was
Yeah.
actually litter box trained. So I don't know if you know a lot about Italian greyhounds, but they do best being litter box trained. So he was our cat. I called him a cat dog. So he would like sit
Mhm.
up high on furniture, and he used litter box for the most part except for when he was upset and he didn't use the litter box, which was a whole other story. So anyway, so my wife, my girlfriend at the time, she moves in with the dog. So I hadn't ever like had a dog really under the roof. And so it was just like really exacerbated his behavior, right? He was more like always by his mom, and like and I just developed this real like hatred of him. I was like, I hate
Yeah.
Elvis. Like, even though he's a little king, he's just so annoying. And like one day, even like it was like 5 o'clock, and I was doing this like really early morning yoga, which is crazy for me. But I did it. I remember going like downstairs to get my coffee before I left, and I was like, oh, I didn't know I left the Sharpies out. It turned out like at some point in the night, like he had jumped up on the table and like pooped right on my placemat.
Oh,
And yeah,
wow.
I know, he's a
He
little
did not
leave him.
care for you
Yeah, I was
intervening
like,
in
leave
his
a little
life.
Sharpie presents and everything. Glad I didn't need to write anything down that morning, because I'd have been like, thank you, no, okay. Um, and so I I slowly came to realize that um everything that Elvis did, I was bothered about because it was also what I did.
Oh,
I had a very,
self-reflection.
yeah, so I was a very, I guess I had a really insecure attachment
Oh,
to my girlfriend, and so it was like the whole, like, 2-day U-Haul lesbian situation, like, it did apply to me at that moment, so I can say it because the stereotype is true. Uh, no longer it's no longer that way. So I was just like, oh my God, I like follow her around and I make sure she's okay. And like, I want to hang out with her all the time. And I'm always like texting her and like, you know, and so I
yeah.
was just like, so I got involved in a 12-step group for codependence called Coda.
Wow.
And yeah, so it's basically like I learned to create healthy relationships and healthy attachments, and getting my 10-year, it'll be my 10-year anniversary in 2 days. And I learned to realize like, oh my God, Elvis is in my life to help me like, and so now so we adopted another dog. I think it was about Olive was about 4 years later. And so he used to just be with Stacy, but then he finally like came around. And so now like I have this beautiful loving relationship with him. I mean, I used to not even be able to
Amazing.
before my other dog, I couldn't even walk him. That's like a whole other story. I couldn't even walk him. He wouldn't let anybody else in the whole world walk him but his mom, and that also infuriated me. But now I have this like deep empathy for him because
Mhm.
I know what it's like to walk in his paws, I guess. I guess you could say.
Yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
so cool. What an awesome shift of energy you guys had. What an incredible self-realization. And those are the hardest, aren't they? Where you like it just dawns on you and you're like, "Oh my gosh, I've been acting and feeling this way." And like it's just it's crazy. It's wild and good for
Yeah.
you for going through a 12-step
Thanks.
program. That's like a huge step, but that's what I love about people that's a description of a life learner, of a grower, people who want to excel. I know that's who our audience is for the Wellness Driven Life Show, cuz nobody else would be listening to it. This is the show for that higher self-development, that awareness where you can listen to people's stories and relate to and be inspired by.
Yeah, yeah, in Coda, we say, "If you spot it, you got it." And so now I know. Now I
Yeah.
know if I have something, if something bothers me, like, "Oh my God, I can't believe that she's doing that." And I'm like, "Am I doing that? Or like, do I want to do that?" And so now I use it as a
Uh-huh.
marker to be like, "Is there
Oh.
a shiny piece of me that's not out yet that is reflecting in this beautiful person that I'm experiencing, that, experiencing this envy or this jealousy," right? Engaging that compassionate co-pilot,
Yeah.
to not go down those sinkholes of jealousy and envy and,
Yeah.
all that social media trying to keep up with the Joneses situation.
I love that you
Um,
brought that up, and I have to go back to it a little bit because not only are you reflecting on am I showing up this way? But you said, do I want to? Is there something in me?
Mm.
And it makes me think about we have to go through things and experiencing things to have that yin yang, the different aspects of knowledge in order for us
Mm.
to understand and be grateful for anything else. It's our soul's growth. And so
Yes.
when we recognize that, I love that you asked that question. It's like, is there something in me that wants to show up that way? For instance, I'll give an example what comes to my head. I get really irritated at people that don't follow through. Like they say they're going
Ah,
to do something and then
okay.
they don't. And like, what if hypothetically there's a part of me that wants to just F everything off? Like if I just didn't care and I didn't follow through, my life would be so much easier because I wouldn't care. So if I just showed up like them and wouldn't care, like, so I don't know. That's
Yeah,
such
but
an idea of what if that's kind of, do I want to show up that way too? Is there a part of me that, finds that attractive somehow, some way
mhm.
for my soul's growth? Question mark?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Or my heart-centered empathetic Heidi would say that, like, is there a part of your life that you need to let go of so that
Right.
you may follow through on your soul's path?
Yes.
Right? Right.
Yeah,
So
no, you said that in a way better way, which I would have loved to have gotten to. I'm so glad that you saw that. That's why you're doing what you're doing. Yeah, absolutely. Is what aspect do you need to let go of?
because a lot of time we chase after all these things, and we all have different, right, bandwidths and plate sizes, and so it's like, is this time? Is this not yet? Is this time for this right now? And if it's not, it's like, can we, in the coda we say, we love it and let it go. We lovingly let it go. So we're
Mm,
not like flipping everything the bird. We're just saying, like,
right.
I love you, and it's not time,
Oh, I love you,
and
and
it's
it's
not,
not
or is
time.
and it's not the right way yet.
I'm gonna bring in your logo, Heidi, because I think it's just I brought this in because it's beautiful. I mean, it
Thank
pops
you.
so brilliantly done with your colors and your marketing and your branding that you've done. My curiosity is, what does this symbol mean to you? Because people could look at it and think of a lot of different things. It almost looks like a saw blade. It's a circle. It's like,
Mhm.
what does this mean to you, if anything?
So, with the colors, with it mostly being like the yellow and the orange. The orange is like my soul color. I'm a Leo. I'm a Leo sun, and so I'm big into
Yeah.
the orange, and the
Now I'm
shinier.
very curious about the hair story if you're a Leo. Now I gotta know. Gotta know.
Oh, and so basically, I think everything, like, everything is kind of like a kaleidoscope, right? So
Yeah.
we're always
Ah,
changing and evolving, and things, we come back to where we were in the beginning, but we're a little shinier, and we're a little wiser, and
full
we're a
circle.
little more resilient. And so
Mm.
so it's just kind of like this circular figure is just kind of like this homage to, like, we're all in process. It's kind of like flames. I view myself kind of like a phoenix. Like, I've had a
Yep.
lot of phoenix moments where I burn down and I come back
Yeah.
up. And thus the logo was born. I don't know if it's the end logo. It's like my third or fourth logo. At
Yeah.
some point it might just be a phoenix. Who knows?
No, that is
So
super cool though. Like, I don't know, maybe you could have the phoenix and the tail feathers swirling around and they'd be like fiery and ashy and like
oh,
in a circle. That's free. You're welcome.
I
And
love that. Yes,
I don't
thank
know,
you.
but it's cool. I love the
Yeah.
concept.
Thank you, thank you. So I do wanna say that your partial circle looks almost like the moon, like a sliver of the moon, even though I don't know if it is a sliver of the moon. So
Yeah, no, there is not that much thought behind this, Heidi. In fact, I pulled that together so fast, probably within a few minutes, because I was so I had to get this together,
mm,
and it's lovely. I do like it. I had a totally different idea of what I wanted to that I put a lot of intention behind. but it's going to take work. And like you said, you're on your third one. Like we just continue to
Yeah.
evolve and
Yeah.
we show up differently. But for now, being in the present moment and not being
Yes.
so self-critical, this is okay and it works for now. And that's what we have to think about as we move forward, especially entrepreneurs, is you can't have that perfectionism piece. Otherwise, you're not going to keep moving. You have to just take action and be okay with it and go to the next thing.
It's good enough. There's this plate.
Yeah.
I'm very grateful to have this tiny little, like, my grandma used to have all these decorative plates from like she would go to like Wyoming or like the Grand Canyon, and then she would get like a plate and a spoon from it, which I think is hilarious. And so I ended up with this plate in my house. That I don't know if it was ever in my mom's house, but it was definitely in my grandma's house. And it said, and I hang it up right in front of my kitchen. It says, "I am not a fast cook. I am not a slow cook. I am a half-fast cook." And
That's
so I
awesome.
never experienced my grandma as she was always very, her hair was done, always makeup, no idea what she really looked like in real life ever. Even when she was ill and going through treatments, she was still always just so well made. So I
That's
have
cool.
this plate, and I was just like, that so speaks to like how I show up. It's just like, all right, I'm going to try my best and I'm going to let the rest go. I'm just going to give it, I'm going to give it my 80, or I'm going to give it my 70%, or today's only 20%. And then I'm going to take a nap, and that is okay. Cause then tomorrow I can hit it at like 80%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I'm going to bring in this awesome book. So this is the book that you made. So I would love to know, tell us about it. Tell us about how you came up with the title. And yeah, I mean, the toilet paper, was this during COVID? Like, was that on the
Was it
mind, the
during the
shortage?
shortage to give people a little roll? It would have been funny if I'd give away rolls at my launch party. Anyway, we did have spaghetti at my launch party, actually. So I after I spent my summer writing in like those 5 subject notebooks, and like in August I was like, I think I need to write, I could do a blog now. Like, I have enough stories. And so I was like, all right, I did a blog, and that was challenging. Publishing and putting your, any work online is always kind of like, oh, even starting a show, right? And just being seen and people hearing your story is nerve-wracking, even if that's what you want to do, right?
Yeah.
And then I kind of got this, like, I think it was November, it was a few months later, and I was like, oh, I can just chronologically write my stories and call them a book. And so the next day I woke up and there was this email in my box saying, write one short book. So I spent a month and a half in a writing group, and I basically cranked out a book. Now that does not include like the 8 revisions that I took. So let's just be clear, writing a book takes like lots of revisions, and then I went through publishing, and that's a whole other like 4-hour podcast where you need lots of caffeine and some tissues. So I decided, I was like, I really want to share my story. And then I was like, you know what? I need to start at the start. I need to start at the beginning of my journey of self-awareness. And so this starts right at the moment where my husband left our son in a store. So right from that first moment. And
Smart, by the way. That's like, that'll grab you, like, oh my gosh, who does that?
Yeah.
And the feelings as a parent, what that would give you.
Yeah. And so like in my feelings, like at first was like, just like, I felt gagged. Like I had so many, I was conditioned so much with so many other layers in front of being direct and honest and speaking my truth. And so, yeah, so it kind of goes down, kind of goes down a rabbit hole of me, like figuring out like what's important. So, it talks about like all the different ways I tried to like figure out and fix my husband. which we all know doesn't really work, right? When we all say,
Yeah.
I used to have a lot of couple friends, and all the women would always joke about like the ways they're going to fix their husbands. And I never really thought about it because I wasn't self-aware.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, I'm not here to fix anybody. I'm just here to make sure that people, like, I can reflect the beauty and the divine that I see in other people so that they know that they are loved and that they can move towards what makes them feel joy.
Yeah. You say, for crying out loud is a Jen Sincero meets Melody Beatty style journey into self-awareness that tries to metaphorically answer the question, how many licks does it take to get to the center of the Tootsie Roll pop?
Yes.
Kind of like the layering the onion, right?
Yeah. So it's just trying to figure out like how many times how many times do you butt up against those outer layers until you start to figure out what's going on
Yeah.
underneath all of that. And I named it for crying out loud. One is because parts of it are humorous. So I wanted to make
Yeah.
sure to have that like little playful aspect. Two, I was potty training my daughter during this. And so there's a lot of mentions of M&Ms and Chippies.
Mhm.
And three, that was during the time where I was coming into awareness of what to do with my feelings.
Yeah.
I had no idea. So I was the mom. I'd put my kids in front of the TV, and then I'd go in the bathroom, I'd lock the door, and I would cry. And then I would be
Oh.
I would be ashamed that I was crying. And so I wouldn't talk to anybody about it. And so I just didn't have any tools, right? So
Oh my gosh.
I had no tools. I just that's where I was at the start. And
I think again, Heidi, like nobody can relate to you. No mother on the face of this earth can understand locking themselves in the bathroom and
having
crying,
having a meltdown,
having a moment.
with parenthood. And
Yeah.
yeah, so I learned, I had worked with my pastor at the time, and I don't remember who came up with the metaphor, but he was like, it's kind of like a parfait. Feelings are like a parfait. So if you don't like, ingest them and understand them and let them breathe and, and eat them, then they just pile up, and
Mm.
pretty soon you have an enormous, 30 pounds of peanuts parfait. And nobody, I don't like peanuts on my parfaits, but some people do. So yeah, so it kind of goes through this process of me figuring out like, what are my feelings? What do they feel like in
Yeah.
my body? And like
Yeah.
accepting them. And then the real blessing. And I have a whole it's called the Feelings Parfait, and it's all about developing emotional intelligence and
Yeah.
just about figuring out all emotions are teachers, and your body goes through a process when you're working with emotions. And so just stepping into that radical acceptance, that same radical acceptance, right? For all of our layers, we need radical acceptance for all of the different layers of the feelings parfait. Right.
Yeah.
And so I had to first like go through this huge layer of being ashamed of having feelings, of being
Mm.
ashamed of not knowing how to rationally react to certain situations. Like I guess in that point, like I wasn't really accepting of my whole humanity, right? I was just trying to be I was a perfectionistic, isolated,
Yeah.
stay-at-home mama, and everything was fine. It's all fine, but it wasn't fine. And I didn't know it
Mhm.
wasn't fine because I would just repress it. And I did it and I tell people this, the way that I repressed my emotions it was actually really encouraged because I got a lot of cleaning done in my house. If there was
Yeah.
a feeling, there was a room to clean, there was like a drawer to organize, there was like stuff
Yeah.
to take to Goodwill. Like I could rotate toys. And
Yeah. Oh, I get
so
that. I get that as a parent for sure.
yeah, because feelings have,
Um,
right, they have that energy. And so I
yes.
was channeling all of that energy that now I'll like write bad poetry. I will cry it out. I will talk to like my wife or friends,
Yeah.
right? To figure out what they're teaching me. But then I was just like, I'm going to use this extra energy and try to do gardening, even though I hate it. Yay. Like, okay.
Yeah, how do you channel it into something to try to get a little
Mhm.
bit of relief? I get that. I wanna
Relief
go back.
and learning. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanna go back to this book cover really quick just because
Sure.
I love, a little bit of our how we show up You said you were a Leo, and I just look at this photo and it's yellow, and there's this big, beautiful, bushy blonde hair, and that is so Leo to me. So coming back to that, if you want to describe just briefly, you have this story about your hair. And by the way, I think the short look looks absolutely fabulous on you.
Thank
Not
you.
too many women can pull that off. I
Ah.
mean, I would not do that because I don't think I can pull it off, right? But not by choice. If I was going through something, but I want to hear your story about it.
Oh man. So during the time of my book, so I would have been in my early 30s. I had these really long blonde locks, and they weren't wavy like in that picture. They were just straight. My hair is straight, and it's always going to be straight. And then I have accepted that it's just going to be straight, and that's how it is. I have tried to do the roller thing. I actually have to put my hair in rollers to make it curly when it's long. And so uh I think it was a few years in. So after the book was over, I actually got a haircut. And my haircut at that point, it was a shortcut, but I was kind of like a female Justin Bieber. And my style back then, I would wear a lot of button down shirts with ties and like sweater vests, or I don't think I was wearing blazers then, but like sweater vests or V-neck sweaters to show off the ties. And so that's kind of like how it was.
Okay.
As I was kind of walking towards my new identity and trying to kind of live out my new identity as being a lesbian woman. Like I didn't know what that meant for me. And so I felt called to kind of do that. And so I had these long
Yeah, like
bangs.
what does that look like, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I was like, I know. So I would actually I would sit in church. So I got my kids baptized at this one church, and I absolutely loved it. And that was where I had got pastoral care, and the Feelings Parfait pastor totally helped me out. I remember sitting in that church being like, well, one, no reason, like it's duh that I was at this church because it's full of lesbian women. And so like I was attracted to it because they were just like, there was a piece of me there, right? There was a piece of my inner shininess was like, you need to go there. Figure it out. There's something there for you. But yeah, so I would sit there and wonder, be like, do I need to wear Birkenstocks? Do I need to wear like short sleeve button down shirts? Is that how I'm going to show up? Is that for me? And so I never really tried that, but that was my version, like the tie with the button down. So then I kind of that kind of style, I used it for a while, and then my hair got long, and then I got maybe closer to 40, and then it was right around the pandemic time. And I was really, really shiny, and I was just about to step into like starting to write my story. And I was loving life, like doing like Zoom. I was doing Zoom interviews and Zoom coffees with people for networking. And I just got this call to cut my hair short again. And my hair was really, really, really long. And I had this really long, really like deep bang, I guess. And I was like, okay, well, how's this going to look? And I'd put my hair up in a pony and be like, I don't know. But I really felt that it needed to be short. There's some part of me that was missing, that was hidden. And I needed to do like something with my hair. So, as you know, I wash my hair, every other day or so. I had come into the awareness that I was having a receding hairline. And I wasn't very happy about it because I thought that only guys had receding hairlines. And I was like, what the F? Why do I gotta have one? And I was really upset about it. So I went and talked to my hairstylist, and she's like, you're a little old to do the Justin Bieber. And I was like, dang it.
No,
So what can we do?
Your hairstylist said that to you? You're a little
I was
old.
like, what can I do? What can I do? And she's just like, I don't know. It's just it'll show off your hairline. And I was just like, oh, this is horrible. And so I just kind of went through this period where I was like, I was mad at my like genes. I was like mad at my mom's like recessive hairline gene. And like, I just It's right. So I was like I engaged my inner judge. And so just mad. I was like, my hair sucks and everything is sucky and like,
Yeah.
why can't we? And so the something inside of me said, just go get it cut anyway. Just go get it cut. Do the Bieber or not do the Bieber, whatever. Just get it cut and it's going to be okay. And so for some reason, like I had gotten to a point where um, I'm I'm leaning into discomfort, right? So I'm just like, okay, I'm just going to go and do this. And I had all these knots in my stomach and I was drinking like a gallon of peppermint tea and I'm just like, I'm going to go get my hair cut. And so I went there and I came back and it was kind of in the Bieber style. And I was like, all right, that wasn't bad. If I give it like a month, then it'll grow out a little bit and like maybe I'll grow it back out to my bangs or whatever. And like my wife, she's like, oh, that was great. You know, your hair looks great or whatever. And then the next day I got up and I like washed it and I blow dried it because I always blow dry my hair and my hair flipped. Like it wouldn't like a sweeping bang. Instead, it just popped back into this like pompadour. And I immediately thought of like Johnny Bravo. And I was like, oh my God, there I am. There I am. And it's okay. You're right. Little inside me who's like wiser. Like it was okay. And so it's like, so I teach about resilience through this lesson. It seems so superficial, but so it's like listening, like being able to engage our inner curiosity.
Yeah.
Right. And like having patience to sit beside ourselves and listen. Cause like I listened to myself and I was like, I really need to do this. And so then for some reason, like that hair being able to pop it back, like it just gives me more confidence in what I'm doing now. And it kind of shows people I'm a little bit off the cup. I'm a little bit shiny, you know, and this is more of who I am. So,
yeah.
So yeah.
That's a cool story. And
the hair story.
Yeah, the struggle of, again, going back to that self-identity piece, and you had really transitioned majorly on like, who am I? What is really my soul calling me out to be and do? And so thank you so much for sharing that. That's a really cool story. And, you know, a lot of people are going to be able to understand now that aspect of you and how you've gone through it. And so thank you so much, Heidi, for sharing your journey with us today. Do you have anything else you want to share with the audience?
I just really want everyone to hear that we talked about True North, and True North is really the starting point. And the goal of my book was really to let you know that you are worthy of joy. You are worthy of putting your compassionate co-pilot in there and like directing your car straight towards joy every time.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much. And I want to make sure that the audience knows exactly where to find you. So we do have it on the screen here, www.heidiesther.com. That is HeidiEsther.com. And I hear your puppies. That's awesome.
Oh my gosh. I think the mailman is here. I'm so sorry.
No problem. That's awesome. So also for everyone listening in, most of you are going to be watching the replay. And a lot of you are going to be tuning in on one of the podcasts, so Apple Podcasts, etc. All of this information and how to reach Heidi is going to be in the description below. Access to her book and her website. Check it out. Thank you again, Heidi, for being a guest on the show.
Oh, it was my absolute pleasure. Thank you so much, April.
You're welcome. So goodbye for now, everyone, and we will see you later.
you.